Greetings everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Tomonari Hamamura, the founder and head of the Japan chapter of the Young World Federalists. He is currently the person in charge of sales of overseas business in Asia for Asahi Syokuhin, a major Japanese food distributor and caterer. He used to own two Japanese restaurants and a guest house in Kyoto, which had earned him widespread acclaim in the hospitality industry. He has also been the CEO of the Universal Peace Corporation, as well as the person in charge of sales for overseas business for power and infrastructure for the Middle East-based Sumitomo Corporation. He holds a BA in Environmental Economics from Doshiha University, Japan, and Masters in Peace Studies from the University of Bradford, UK. So, firstly, Mr. Tomo, thanks a lot for joining us today. It's an honor to
Mhm.
interview you, and I must say, like your profile is very impressive. So much
No, thank
diversity,
you.
and like it's great to interview you.
Thank you so much.
So I'll begin with the first question. How did you become a World Federalist and where did you first come across the idea?
Mm. Actually, I don't know how I became a World Federalist, but since I was a child, my dream has not been changed. My dream is to abolish war and to make a peaceful world. And then, but when I was a university student, after I read the open letters between Albert Einstein and Jim Freud about World Federation, maybe at the time I became a World Federalist.
Okay. So how has World Federalism been historically perceived in Japan and what does the current generation think about it? Since you are heading the
Mm,
Japan chapter, so could you give us a
mhm,
Japanese perspective?
mhm. Okay. So actually, before World War II, Japan was a kind of like a military country, but after Second World War, um, especially during the Cold War, because the atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so most Japanese people were afraid of atomic war between Soviet and the U.S. So that's why a lot of like Japanese politicians and the philosophers and the scientists, they basically supported for creating World Federation. So, for example, Yukio Ozaki, he's called as the father of like governance based on constitution, and then he was like a big supporter for World Federation. And then also Hideki Yukawa, he got a like peace Nobel Prize for physics. And then he was very like he was activist for World Federation with Albert Einstein. So, and also in like a Japanese diet, we have a committee for supporting World Federation, and also in many Japanese prefectures, they have like own committees for supporting World Federation. So, especially during the Cold War era, like a lot of Japanese people supported World Federation. But after the end of Cold War, uh, you know, like because of like a Pax Americano, like Japan became very peaceful, and then like a Japanese economy, grew up like dramatically developed, and then after Cold War, Cold War, like the like movement of the World Federation became like not so active. So the at this present, like at the present, like maybe the current generation, uh, actually basically young people are not so concerned about politics. So maybe at this moment, like current generations think the World Federation is like too idealistic, like that. Mm, I think so.
That's something similar to what has happened in India also.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, he is a very popular pacifist.
Yeah.
He was a
Mm,
world federalist. Then our first prime minister, he was a world federalist. But
mm,
India itself, it's a manifestation of world federalism because so much of
mm.
diversity and a country staying together. That's
Yeah, 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 yeah,
that
yeah.
country is
It's a kind of a
born.
model. Yeah, yeah.
It's
Mm.
established to become a part of a world federation. But like the people, they're not aware about this, and the youth also similarly does not take much interest in politics. Like everybody thinks
Mm.
that politics is all about corruption and political bullshit, but it's much beyond that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, but I hope. Yeah. Mm.
Let's hope things improve.
Yeah, yeah.
So, after having known the situation in Japan, how has been the journey of YWF Japan until now, and what are your plans for the future?
Mm. Actually, I started the Japanese chapter 2 months ago, but I don't want to like expand rapidly. So I want like grow up steadily and slowly, and I want to find a person who has a strong passion for creating World Federation, not like like a student, like a friends meeting. So I want to like a strong, yeah, I want to have a persons, not so many, but a few, like is fine. So I want to develop my chapter slowly but steadily. So actually I don't have like a specific future plan, but I want to find uh, a person one by one, yeah, slowly, and then when like the World Federation is needed, like at the global level, maybe we can like support, like Japanese members can support for creating World Federation, like with very strong passion.
Hmm. Yeah, passion is the most important thing. Like, it does not matter how many
Yeah,
people we have, but the number
yeah.
of people we
Mm,
have, they must be like thinking about the idea in a good way, and they must be passionate about that. And
mm,
coming to the
mm.
future plan, yeah, that's the same situation with the GFL also because the work we're doing, you cannot really chalk out plans and like think about numbers and statistics because that would be a very like business like sort of thing to do, and we cannot work that out over here. It's more about learning and enjoying the experience of moving ahead. So that is
Yeah,
something
yeah,
which
yeah.
both YWF Japan and and the GFL can relate to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Mm.
So suppose we expect a World Federation to form. What do you think will be Japan's role in the World Federation?
Mm. Actually, now the tension between China and the US is becoming like higher and higher. So from the geopolitical perspective, Japan is sandwiched, between two strongest, biggest countries. So if they, fight each other, maybe Japan will be the like first target by China because we have a lot of U.S. militaries in Okinawa, Yokohama, in many prefectures. So maybe if they fight, Japan will be mostly damaged. So I'm very concerned now the tension between them is increasing. Uh, so if I hope that they don't fight, but if the tension becomes higher and higher, maybe Japan can suggest to be independent from the like U.S. military and not against with China, but simultaneously, maybe we can suggest to create World Federation to protect Japan, not by Japanese military, not by U.S. military. So if we like suggest that maybe we can stop the conflict war between the US and China. Also, we can create the way to create the World Federation. So I think this is a Japan's role for creating World Federation. So uh, but yeah, we have to wait like for the timing, because now it's the power in during the power shift, like American power is declining, the Chinese power is rising, and they are competing. But at this at the moment, we cannot like maybe we can, but we cannot get support from the people to create World Federation, but because they don't have a kind of you know they
Insecurity.
yeah, like they mostly Japanese people especially, like they don't feel the threat. But if people feel the like a threat, for example, like environmental degradations, like if people feel the threat, they move basically. So now it's very like a transition like period. So it's a little bit difficult to suggest my opinion, but I'm waiting for the timing. Sorry, yeah, this is my opinion about the Japanese role for creating World Federation.
Currently, there's a lot of apprehension and like tension about what is next going to happen, because both the countries, they
Mm,
lack trust in each other, and the countries in between, such as Japan, Korea, and even if we can consider India also, which is like at the crossroads of China and America in terms of diplomacy. Like all these countries are
mm,
feeling apprehensive about what to do next. So until the time this lack of trust prevails, we cannot really like think expect people to support world federalism.
yeah. Mm, yeah, exactly.
So, are there any other institutions in Japan working for world federalism? I know that there's a World Party in Japan, which has a very impressive representation in the Japanese diet. But, like, apart
Mhm.
from that, any other organizations?
Mm. Actually, there are a few like groups, institutions for World Federation, but there are two biggest institutions. One of them is World Federalist Movement, Japanese branch, and also like the like a World Federation 21st Century Forum. This is also like a big NGO for supporting World Federation.
Okay. So, like, how active are these organizations?
Hmm. Actually, it's a difficult to say, but when I joined some activities of them, most members were very old. And then, as I said, these NGOs were founded by people after Second World War. So most members were old, and then they were very concerned. Also, they are very interested in like supporting for creating the World Federation, but there were a few young members. So I think it's a little bit doesn't match with the present situation. So we have to, you know, invite young people, and then young world, Federalist movement is mainly members. Most members were, basically young people. So that's why I joined.
Yeah, that's something similar over here, because I came across the YWF and the work they're doing. So they spread out this idea very attractively through YouTube videos and other channels where you can get to know things,
Mm,
because
mm,
nobody really likes to go and like read a lot of content on their websites. It's exhaustive, but easy YouTube videos, easy to understand things. That is what inspired me also to join the movement, and that's
yeah,
the reason we
yeah,
are
yeah.
talking today. And like I must say,
Yeah.
like, this movement has treated me very well. I've learned a lot of
Mm,
things. Really. As a young person,
mm.
I can say that. So, as a person who has pursued masters in peace studies, how would you
Yeah.
define peace, and what
Mm,
solutions would you propose to end the chaos that we are currently undergoing?
mm. Okay. So when I studied peace studies, especially maybe some people don't know about peace studies, but basically like a studies, the one of founders uh, is like Johann Galtung, and then he said the peace is like a situation where there is no violence, like without direct violence, and then also structural violence and the cultural violence. But actually, when came back to Japan after I studied, peace studies in UK, uh, actually in Japan, there, of course, we have, but there are a few like direct violences and structure and cultural violences, but I felt a little bit like a lot of Japanese people have had like anxiety or fear or something like that. And then the English word security is originally from Latin word secure. It means without concern. So my definition of peace is a situation where there's no anxiety or like a fear like that. So for me, like peace activity is to like make peace, like to make the situation without anxiety from myself at first, like inner peace, no anxiety, fear. So like meditation or so, and also like a person to person, for example, if we know well about neighbor peoples, and then maybe if we know each other well, maybe the village or town becomes peaceful. And then if we know about Pakistan people or like people from North Korea or Chinese people well, and then maybe if we don't have like a anxiety each other, maybe we can make like a peaceful relationship.
Mhm.
So from the personal level and like a relationship between persons, people, and then also the relationship between nations. So for me, the peace like activity is to make the situation without anxiety at the personal level, and then also like inter people's level and also international level. So this is my like definition of peace, right? And then also the solutions to end this, the present chaos. Actually, maybe you you have read the factfulness, and maybe I think the world has been solving a lot of issues,
Mhm.
and then I'm I believe in the world is becoming better, but uh, uh, it's not enough, I think. So for example, like in the past, Japan was divided into small countries, and at in the Civil War era, we fought each other, we killed each other for a long time, even in Japan. But now Japan was united as a one country, and Japan became peaceful. So it's I think it's much better than before. So then now for maybe EU is not enough, but maybe for the past people in Europe, they fought each other for centuries, for
Mhm.
many years,
Yeah.
but now, yeah, now they can move, uh, like they can across the border without passports, and maybe it's a little bit to now it's a little bit difficult to imagine what you know, they, wage war again. But yeah, there is a still possibility, but it's a little bit difficult to imagine this, at the moment. So I think the world is becoming better, but it's not enough. So for me, I think maybe we need like effective and then legitimate like enforcement of like international law. Otherwise, for example, it's without like a Japanese constitution, maybe it's maybe difficult to manage each prefectures without constitution. But now, based on Japanese constitutions, each prefectures cannot be independent. And in the past, a lot of samurais had their own weapons and they fought each other. But now, it's prohibited to have weapons. So we need like an international, like a global level law with effective enforcement. So then maybe the war between nations or maybe conflicts can be prohibited based on effective international law. So I think the maybe to end to solve this present global issues or like a war between nations, maybe we need effective enforcement of law international at global level.
That was very profound, I must say, and I agree with your definition of peace completely because I stay in a country which is generally peaceful, but then we find a few people harboring some ill sort of intentions towards other people, having prejudices and things like that. So, uh, like
Yeah.
it's my earnest hope that things improve soon and we achieve your definition of peace because whenever we use the word peace, it's taken for granted and nobody really understands the true meaning. So, thanks a lot for that profound meaning, and of course, I agree
Yeah,
with
yeah,
your
yeah.
with the proposal for enforcement of international laws and like a lot of institutions like the YWF itself and a lot of other World Federalist movements, they're working towards that. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let us hope things improve a bit by bit.
Yes, yes. I hope. Yeah. Mm, mm,
So this is an extension from the question on peace studies.
mhm.
Could you tell us something about your thesis? I believe it was something on it was on the United Nations and its like the ways in which it has been proven ineffective. Could you please
Mm.
elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I wrote about the limitations of United Nations and also the possibility of world government, world federation. So basically, I wrote the history of like a supranational, organizations like a League of Nations and the UN, and also like in Asia or Africa or in Europe, and then basically I wrote the history of like a super national authority or organizations, and then also I wrote about the limits of like a Security Council or the United Nations, and then also the reform of UN, and then finally, I wrote about the possibility of world federation.
So, I must say, you have been very closely associated with world federalism, both academically and now currently you're taking part in a civil society or managing a civil society which works towards world federation. So, that's very inspiring, and I look forward to learning more in your company. So, another thing that fascinated me is that you have traveled 30 plus countries from the
Yeah.
US and Europe to Shanghai, and you
Mm,
managed a restaurant and a guest house. So,
mm,
as a globe trotter and a hospitality industry professional, what role do you
mm,
think tourism has to play in uniting people?
mm, 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 mm. Yeah, actually, after I studied peace studies in UK, I came back to Japan, uh, with actually started traveling from Germany, and then also I traveled Europe and then Turkey, Iran, uh, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Tibet, Shanghai. So I traveled without airplanes, by trains and by buses. So I I basically I love traveling, but I could travel because the world uh, was peaceful. And then also, I was the owner of a restaurant before COVID-19 happened. And the most customers were foreign tourists. But after COVID-19 happened, you know, most customers couldn't come to Japan. So basically, we can travel because the world is peaceful. So I think, of course, tourism or traveling can help for people to understand each other's cultures and people's way of life, or so it's very important to know each other's beyond the national borders. But if war or conflict happens, we cannot travel, and we cannot, maybe tourism will be mostly affected. So uh, I felt before traveling, yeah. Firstly, firstly we have to make the peaceful world. Otherwise, we cannot travel. So yeah. So when the COVID-19 happened, I felt that. So that's why actually uh, I was owner of a restaurant and then also one guest house in Kyoto. But as I said, I felt the I was very concerned about the tension between China and the U.S. So, and also I said, Japan will be mostly affected. So after COVID-19 was occurred, I contacted with many people who is a kind of activist for peace. And then I asked them, how do you think about this situation, or how should we act for this, you know the possibility, if the child, because at that time, Trump was the president in the US,
Yeah.
so I yeah, so I was really concerned. And then so actually couldn't I I I couldn't concentrate on managing restaurants and the guest house because basically, as I said, since I was a child, my main mission is to make a peaceful world. So I couldn't focus on managing restaurants and guest house. So actually I quit, and one of my restaurants was transferred to one of my main customers, and he's running now. But I quit, and then I went to many, especially in Japan, because of COVID-19. I couldn't go outside. So in Japan, I went to many places to meet people who is a peace activist. And then so yeah, so for me, tourism can be realized when the world is in the peace, in peaceful. Yeah.
Well, I must salute your level of dedication because, like, you contacted so many people and you were so closely affected by the current scenario. A lot of us are affected, but then the daily life and all, like within this busy schedule, you manage a chapter of the YWF. You contact so many people, so like that's great. I
Mm,
believe like, that's very
mm, mm,
inspiring.
mm, mm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm,
So, what do you think about the future of this movement, the World Federalist Movement, and with
mm,
issues like climate change and the current pandemic which we are facing? Do you think world federalism has become more relevant?
mm, mm. Yeah, I think basically, yeah, I think what federalism has become, I think, more uh, relevant now. And then now, for example, COVID-19, it proved that we cannot manage it only by individual countries. We have to cooperate each other, and we have we need a kind of a management, a global management. But I think UN is not enough. Like UN is basically like a delegation of nations and people like you know they basically insist on their own national interest. But for like a climate change or like a pandemic or global issues, we need the management, so global level. So I think people, I think we realize that we need like a like a in the management at the global level beyond national management. So I think at the moment it's yeah it's now in the transition period, I think. So people will realize gradually, I think, or maybe if something big like event happens, maybe people will wake up. But uh, so it's difficult to develop the movement at the actually at the peaceful time. It's a little bit difficult to develop the movement, I think, because after Second World War, uh, Albert Einstein realized that uh, we need the World Federation to avoid uh, atomic war, because like Albert Einstein, a lot of Japanese people and also a lot of like people were very afraid of atomic war between the Soviet and the U.S. So they had a kind of a threat, but now it's a yeah, of course the threat between China and the U.S. is becoming higher, but now I think we are in the end of Pax Americana era. So still we feel kind of a peace. Of course it depends on the country, but I think we need more like um, yeah, cynically like we need more like the uh, fear or threat to make people move to like global environmental degradations. We need more specific like threat to change the society or the world. So I think at the peaceful time, it's a little bit too difficult to develop the movement. But maybe from now, I think the world will be changed, I think, dramatically. So maybe we need, you know, to develop the movement of the World Federation for stop conflict between nations.
Yeah. Like people, they have forgotten the perils of the war and the time after that. So now people think that okay, nothing much is going to happen, and most people, they just think about war fiction movies and all. Nobody has seen
Mm,
the real.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Mm.
like our target is to achieve a world federation before the World War III, because after that people won't be
Yeah,
allowed to form one.
yeah, totally
Better
destroyed.
to
So,
prevent that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Before, yeah, World War. Mm.
So, like focusing on the environmental degradation part,
Mm.
what are your opinions on the environmental degradation we are facing, and how do you think we can stop this phenomenon?
Mm. I think, the we cannot stop the universal like change. Like as you know, the sun is expanding. You know, year by year. So in the far future, the Earth will be dried completely. So we cannot stop you know the expansion of the sun. So I think we cannot we I think we have to like realize that like just a single person, the human beings also have a like lifetime. So we cannot exist eternally in the universe. So I think our as a human being, the lifetime is limited. But also uh, we can, be happy as possible as we can, and then we can like we can I think stop the climate change caused by human activities,
Mhm.
but we cannot stop the climate change caused by the universe.
Yeah,
So yeah, so like same as like a disease, like we can you know uh yeah, we can like stop the like expansion of like viruses inside the body by training, or by the diet, or yeah, by many things. But we can reduce the risk by our effort, but we will die finally. And also the same as a single person, human beings, we cannot, exist eternally in the universe, but we can make it longer by, harmonizing with natures, or by making the earth more peaceful, or yeah, like a co to make like making co we can coexist with natures, and then maybe we can reduce the risk, but we cannot stop this phenomenon. We can effort, of course, I think.
we can slow the process of degradation, but like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah, yeah,
possible to stop it. Yeah.
yeah.
So, which single issue of the world affects you the most?
Hmm. I think the maybe war. So yeah, since I was a child, my question was how, why we wage war. Like so, this is my main question in my life. So I want to make the like system, yeah, basically like a political system uh, in like for like nations not to wage each other, or so yeah, maybe my main issue my main issue is maybe the lack of effective political system to abolish war.
Yeah. So I must say you have been devoted to pacifism and world. I don't know about world federalism, but at least pacifism since your very childhood.
Mm, 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 mm.
So, lastly, what are your plans for the week for World Parliament in Japan?
Mm, mm, mm. Actually, I didn't have a plan, but I'm planning for organizing an online event uh, in Japan. So I'm gonna create the event page on SNS, and then yeah, I'm gonna introduce it to Japanese people, friends, and yeah, basically so in maybe in Japanese, but yeah, I want to create an online event.
Yeah, that's great. Like to have
Mm.
people learn about world federalism in their own languages, which they're comfortable with. That's a very
Yeah.
great initiative. So,
Mm.
thank you very much, Mr. Tomo, for
Uh,
giving this interview and sharing your opinions and sharing your profound thoughts. It was an honor
yeah.
interviewing you, and I personally have gained a lot from this interview, and I believe our viewers will also like this. So, that note, I extend my best wishes to YWF Japan and to you so that we may succeed in our penultimate goal, that is achieving a democratic world federation and ensuring the end of war. So,
Mm.
with that, sayonara.
Sayonara. Thank you so much. Goodbye.